Hello, everyone. Hey, Andrea.
Hey, Roxana, how are you?
Doing all right. I don't know why every time we get on Instagram, it's like it feels like it's a new, a new
Did they?
adventure.
It's all right.
I'm sitting here like, oh, how do I get on
How
again?
are you doing?
Welcome, everyone. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you.
How are the Nikes?
Nikes are good. Super good. Doing good.
So today we're just gonna have a nice discussion, a little talk. Hopefully people will send us some questions about bipolar disorder. Today, March 30th, every year is World Bipolar Awareness Day. Did you know that, Dr. Pendelli?
I know that. So you told me a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
I know. So I was like, we have to do something to really educate people, because I think even though we hear bipolar, we don't really know sometimes what the words mean. So I thought this would be a good space to do that. Instagram allows us to talk to more people, right? And educate more folks. So I know a lot of people are coming in. So not next week, but April 19th, we have a training and we'll talk a little bit about that, and hopefully some people will join us. My daughter is joining me in the background, so you guys might hear her. So thank you everyone for coming to take a lunchtime break with us. I'm just going to do a little bit of an introduction. My name is Roxana Feenster. I'm with the Black Mental Health Alliance. I've been here 5 years at Black Mental Health Alliance, doing a lot of the work around training, and making sure that people are getting connected to resources. So for Black Mental Health Alliance, the organization has been around for 40 years, and really their vision, their mission is to develop, promote, and sponsor trusted, culturally relevant educational forums, trainings, and referral services that support the health and well-being of Black people and their communities. I have to make sure I say that so that people will know what the organization is. So we're Black Mental Health Alliance. We don't have mental health services, but we do connect people with those resources, and we train providers around culturally relevant, culturally affirming care. And that's one of the things we'll go over a little bit, especially when you have new diagnosis. It's really important that your provider knows how to talk to you. They know your culture. They know that it's not going to be, some information is not going to be accepted unless it's presented a certain way. So that's one of the things that really we have to be mindful of when we're doing certain trainings or when we're doing certain talks in the community, that not everyone is at the same level, and to make sure that we're making them feel comfortable. And so now I get to introduce my very handsome, very kind co-host today. He is really passionate about mental health and is always willing to do educational trainings with us, and actually reached out to Black Mental Health Alliance last fall.
Last fall.
And really has championed a lot of things. Today we did a live December we did a live. Yeah, around relationships and how important it is to your mental health. And today we'll be talking specifically again about debunking the myths, but on Bipolar Awareness Day, we have to make sure that we're also one of the things that I didn't get to say is that it's celebrated every March the 30th. I have my notes here, so that's what I'm looking at, guys. It's not all here. And that it was to bring awareness to bipolar disorders and to eliminate social stigma through international collaboration. The goal of World Bipolar Day is to bring the world population information about bipolar disorders that will educate and improve sensitivity towards the illness. I wanted to read that word for word because I thought that was so important to make sure that we have sensitivity towards the illness and not think that it's slight. So also, bipolar can be a lifelong mental health problem that mainly affects your mood. It affects how you feel, and your mood can change massively. So just imagine one moment you can feel okay, and then next moment you can feel like you could change the world, and then another moment you just feel like you can't do anything. You don't feel good about yourself. You don't feel good about the things that would usually make you feel good. So I have my moderator just walked out. Laura, can you help me with the chat? So when you're in between those times, your mood changes, and you can see the changes in your energy level, how you act. Bipolar used to be called manic depression. So I wanted to have us start there and introduce Dr. Bandelli, because I feel like you have to know all that someone has gone through that makes them not only an expert in the topic, but just like their life experience too. So, Dr. Adam is the founder and managing director of Bandelli and Associates. He is an organizational psychologist and a seasoned leadership advisor with over 20 years. You don't even look like you have that much time on the earth. 20 years of corporate consulting experience. He's a visionary, an entrepreneur. And his recent book, Relational Intelligence, outlines his research-based framework of the 5 essential skills people need to build life-changing relationships. Adam's calling and purpose in life is to help leaders use relational intelligence to identify and embrace and unleash their true, authentic selves, enabling them to transform the quality of their professional and personal relationships. And I think that's what's so great about your work is that not only are you in the workplace, and yes, it's to help it function, but that if you address the person and how what's motivating them and all those things that makes us connected, that's what's going to make your workplace better. So holler at Dr. Bandelli if you want your workplace to flow better and really for people to be invested in your mission. I've been at Black Mental Health Alliance for 5 years, and I think I wouldn't have stayed there if I didn't have my coworkers that supported me through the death of my mom and really just encouraged me. Like, sometimes they were doing my work for me because it was like they cared about me as a human being, being able to sustain the work. So just a little bit about that. And I want you to talk a little bit about your experience, where you've been through.
Yeah.
And Andrea always does this check-in. What's your one word for the past 48 hours?
One word for the past 48 hours. I'd probably say curiosity, probably the last 48 hours or so. As embarking on a couple of new programs, and we're in the process of figuring out all the details. So, and we did this a month ago. We're planning for the session we're going to be doing with you guys on April 19th. We hadn't looked at training or development around the family before. So there was a curiosity kind of week where my colleagues and I got together and we really kind of thought through how do we take what we do in corporations and businesses and translate it for folks in the Black community and make it simple so people can go back and apply it with their parents or their children or their siblings. So curiosity is always a word that comes up throughout the week, and the last 2 days have been focused on that.
Awesome. And you know what, you saying that just made me think about that. Was it like exciting as well to like apply your work in like that different dimension that's started, like how your mom influenced you in even how to relate to people that were different than you? She was a teacher that was dealing with kids that were disabled, that weren't like everyone else, and how that taught you empathy. And now it's like you could take that work and kind of expand it out.
Yeah,
like
that's the most exciting part. I mean, when we got done, that's why we're really excited about the next couple of weeks coming up to it, is just, to be able to take these ideas, developing trust, building rapport, the things that we sometimes learn about at homes. And a lot of times we learn these behaviors from what not to do, or what we see parents, doing the opposite of, and really wanting to have a better life for our families and our children, and, things we didn't observe. So yeah, it's always great.
Awesome. Awesome. So, can you just introduce yourself a little bit, and then you can maybe talk about, okay, well, you introduce yourself and then I'm going to ask you the next question.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Dr. Adam Bandelli. I'm the founder and managing director of Bandelli and Associates. And we really focus on three things, Roxana. One is really helping leaders identify, unlock, and unleash their authentic selves. And we do that through the power of relational intelligence and really teaching people how to build successful long-term relationships with people across all areas of their lives. So family, friendships, romantic relationships, marriage, in business. Our work is really helping leaders understand this blueprint or playbook for how to really build those great connections with others. So that's something we're very passionate about. But my firm also does a lot of work around executive coaching and helping to develop leaders. That's a big part of the business that we do as well. We help companies onboard, select, and hire leaders as well. But then a lot of the work that I think is more personal to me and pertinent to our conversation today is just around mental health awareness. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder about 20 years ago. The times were very different than they were now, early 2000s. And so there was even more of a stigma then than there is now. And the way that I was diagnosed, the therapist, psychiatrist who diagnosed me had really poor bedside manner. And it caused me, it was one of the factors, not the main factor, but for me to really live in denial about it for almost a decade. And it wasn't until I almost lost everything and dealt with a substance abuse addiction that I realized I had to turn my life around and accept that I had this disorder. And I say disorder, not disease, because disease is just, that even has a negative connotation to it.
Yes. And I noticed on the website for World Mental Health Awareness Day, they don't say disease, they say disorder. So that's why I wanted to make sure we said the right, describe that correctly.
Again, it's a life altering disorder where you're going to have to learn how to live differently. But it's manageable. It's just learning to pick up new habits and behaviors. It's learning what your triggers are, whether they be relational, whether they be contextual, situational. And it's also learning how to manage. You started today talking about the ups and downs, and they called it manic-depressive episode or manic depression for a long time because bipolar disorder is a disorder of energy. And you either have really, if you're not medicated and you're not, the energy can be really, really high when you're doing some off-the-wall things at times, or the energy could be really, really low where you're severely depressed, even suicidal. So medication and therapy will help to balance those ups and downs so it's more stable like most people. But it's really a disorder of energy. And so when I talk about this to people, it's really letting them know, first off, that it's not a disease. It's okay to not be okay. And that it's really more about figuring out how to manage this like you would manage diabetes or you would manage any type of long-term, disorder or disadvantage you'd have to deal with.
Yes. And you know what? You saying that, I was just looking through the comments and I thought I saw some remarks that were kind of not sensitive. So I want to just say that Dr. Bandelli and I both have a family members that have bipolar disorder. So it's not a funny disease to us. It's not a flippant thing to us. The highs and lows are not nothing, right? Because someone can make really bad decisions off of thinking they can do anything. I remember my one of the colleagues that I had worked for, her brother just one day decided he could do MMA fighting and registered, and she was really scared for him. So I think we think like it's a funny thing, but it's not funny when someone is really at a vulnerable state and then some people are taking advantage of them. So it's not a funny disease, guys. I know some of the things may seem funny to us, but really to that person that's going through it, it's a crisis, right? And they don't want to be the joke of everyone. So just be mindful of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So at this point, I wanted to see if I know you shared a little bit about going into a crisis state 20 years ago.
Yeah.
How much of a difference? And I know Richard Rowe and you have discussed this before.
Yeah.
How much of a difference would it have made to have someone who was culturally affirming at your bedside?
Yeah, it would have been tremendously, affirming to have someone who, same skin, same ethnicity, understood kind of my cultural upbringing, my backgrounds. It was a white doctor who, really didn't view me anything else than just a patient for that day. And so there was no building rapport. Even when they asked, typically a lot of times folks are, hesitant to go see a psychiatrist because you have to go through that first of telling your story, and that could be painful to remember back certain things. And I think I was maybe a minute or so into telling the story where the doctor just cut me off and said, "This is what you have to take these pills, come back in 2 weeks." And that was very, to someone who was 22, 23 years old, who had a huge ego, the world revolved around him. That wasn't, a psychologist having a psychological disorder wasn't processing for me. That didn't make sense. And then just the way that the doctor treated it is just like, you have this life altering disorder. Go figure, go come back in 2 weeks and we'll talk about it then. And so I think if I had someone who was culturally affirming, or someone who at least took the time to build a relationship with me, it would have changed the whole, onset of the disorder and some of the decisions I didn't make early on.
And that's funny because you said curiosity. I think you as a psychologist, that's what makes you good at your job, is because you're curious. Like, I was telling you a story and you were like, you had like follow-up questions. And I was like, I don't know why I didn't think of that before. And I think that's why, you need someone it doesn't have to be a Black or a whatever culture you're from. It just has to be someone who's curious and really cares about the person as they're presenting to them, right? So it's not that, oh, well, I'm just going to do this with this whole culture of people. It's just really taking the time to care about the person that's in front of you. And sometimes even us just talking things out, like you said, if you had that time to just talk, even sometimes to ourselves, we're like, wait a minute, like, that didn't make sense. Like, that wasn't that smart. Like, we even go through a process because we do have that knowledge and that power in us to self-correct and heal. So it's like, just us giving people space as a provider or as a clinician, that's healing for someone.
That's right. Absolutely.
So I was thinking also, so everyone, just to if you're just joining us, we're talking about the reason why we're here today is World Bipolar Awareness Day. And every year they bring up awareness around bipolar disorder, because they found that when you do have those spaces that people can learn about bipolar disorder and ask questions, people are sensitive about that, and it takes the stigma away from getting help. So, and I was also reflecting back on what Dr. Mandelli said, just being a young person and you're given that diagnosis, we have to make sure we have spaces that people can ask questions. And I think Instagram is a good place, because you don't have to necessarily raise your hand and say something. You just be like asking for a friend. So I think a lot of times I do that too. Oh, it's not me. It's just I'm asking for a friend. But one of the things with bipolar disorder, we're saying that it's highs and low energy, but just because you have a burst of energy one day and the next day you feel tired, it could be a lot of things. So just make sure if you see any of your symptoms are lasting more than 2 weeks, think about getting some help, because you don't want it to keep lingering on, and it's like you're just used to that lifestyle. So just checking in with a mental health provider, doing whatever kind of assessment you have to do, because then that way you know what you're dealing with as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know if you have anything you wanted to say around just getting the diagnosis. I'm just looking through the chat now.
One thing that you really highlighted, Roxana, is, you're going to have ups and downs. That's part of life, a couple days here or there. It's when you start to see patterns of behavior, not sleeping, a normal 5, 6, 7 hours a night. That's really important. So if you start to see your sleeping patterns thrown off course, that could be a negative sign. If you start to see, normal life behaviors that you might have to do, shaving your head, showering, shaving your head in my case, but shower. Going to the gym, working out, spending time with family. If you start to see yourself in isolation, if depressive symptoms are coming in and it's prolonged for, like you said, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then you really have to start to look at, okay, has my mood shifted? Has my mood changed? Emotions can be temporary, but the mood, when that starts to change for a prolonged period, that could be the sign that you're going into a depressive episode or that you're going into a manic episode.
Yes, I was trying to moderate our chat. I know Andrea was saying something. He does not take no for an answer and challenges the bottom line. I don't know what that was as a response to, Andrea. I'm looking here. Thank you everyone for joining us. So we also want to answer whatever questions you may have. Yeah, I don't see any questions in here. Oh, he said nice, lovely curiosity. I guess my word for today would be I have to reset. I keep thinking that I'm resetting and I'm getting stuff done, but I keep seeing that that's not happening. So I got to rethink how I'm doing stuff.
Yeah, we're ready. The year's flying by already. You feel like it was
my
just
gosh, yes.
I always recommend people taking that time to reflect when you go through, come to the end of the month, get ready for another month, whether you have a mental health disorder or not, just taking stock of where you are. Did you set some New Year's resolutions that you haven't taken action on 3 months into the year? Are you where you want to be in your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health? And so that's always good, whether or not you have bipolar disorder, another psychological disorder, or if you're just trying to improve your life, really stop to take time to assess where you are, whether that's through journaling, whether it's through prayer, doing things just to kind of check your own mental health. Because bipolar day or depression day or any type of day that out there that the World Health Organization has, those are days for all of us to stop and pause and think of our own mental health. And so I think that's important along our journeys to do that and to pause and to reflect.
I know you said that you like to going to the gym is one of your ways of self-care. What other things do you like to do to like reset your mind? You just made me think about that.
Yeah. I think things. I love to take walks outside, going out with my dog, taking walks. I love to play golf. I like to do a lot of like different types of yoga, stretching, and those type of things. So for me, it's a lot of physical activity that just gets my brain, because I'm working from home a lot, having my own business, home office. So you can spend 8-10 hours on Zooms or in meetings and physically get out, get some fresh air. That's really important for me. And then spending time with friends and family, making sure that the people that I'm investing in or those who are sewing into my life, that I'm doing that as well. For me, it's really finding that balance between work and non-work activities.
Nice. So I'm taking advantage that I can walk now. I had foot surgery in the beginning of January, and I was actually able to walk down the street. So I did half a mile, because walking was where I usually would process things. Even if it was a little cold outside, even though I didn't like it, I still did it. And I think that's when I could really, like you said, take yourself outside of because my office is in my house too. So now it's like I'm thinking about stuff all the time, getting stuff done. Oh, wait, let me go down there and print something or do this. So yeah, I think taking that reset is really it's imperative throughout the workday, just to get out, do a slow walk. And I noticed that one of the other ladies that we do work with, Maryland Department of Health, she was saying she loves essential oils, and I had went to an organic store and I found some oils. So just sitting there mixing my little different mixes has been helping as well. So guys, if you want, you can put in the chat any questions that you have. What do you do to reset? And I know we're taking time today to talk about bipolar disorder. And Dr. Bandelli had said all of those mental awareness days, we really should take that time to make sure we're building ourselves back up, because that's what helps keep us resilient. It's not by chance that the people who are still able to enjoy their life are enjoying it, right? It's not by accident. It's like you got to do it on purpose. Have the things that are fun to you on purpose. So Andrea said, how do we support colleagues who are bipolar? Yes, so that's like a thing in the workplace is, if you do know someone is bipolar, how can you support them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is being there to listen, being there to answer questions or to be a support when they need it. A lot of times people with bipolar disorder, especially when they're manic, they don't feel like they need advice or input from others. Right. We last month on managing your mental health, and it kind of goes broader than bipolar disorder, but it kind of gives tools and techniques that people can, who are caretakers or people who have friends or family who have bipolar disorder, advice that they can do. Being able to develop trust is really, really critical. You know, when they are manic or when they are depressed, you want to be a resource to them that can be there to support. And so, you know, intentionally investing time with them, asking how they're doing, not being too pushy and too nosy all the time, but just making sure they know that you're a resource they can go to. You know, I have certain friends and certain family over the years who have played different roles as I've gone up and down on my own journey. And I think the biggest thing that they did was just, you know, offer a shoulder to cry on or a ear to listen to something that was going on in my life. And they would always check up on me. So I would encourage folks who have people in their lives who, whether it's bipolar, depression, anxiety, like check up on those people. I think it's important. A lot of times we get caught up in just the day-to-day of our own lives. You find more fulfillment yourself when you're with others and building those relationships.
Yes, definitely. And I think I also, when I think of colleagues, so it could be someone that you don't really, are not really close with, but just being like, I was talking to my son and he works for a huge organization, and I was telling him, oh, well, when you have times where you're not sure if you need to take a break, go ahead and take a break, because your boss may not know that, you know, you're going through something, or, you know. So I think, yes, sometimes your boss can be like, oh, well, maybe you need a day. We have a light load right now. Why don't you go reset, come back tomorrow? If you don't have someone like that, if a colleague sometimes can check on you, bring you a coffee, a tea, that goes a long way in just helping people feel seen, you know. But then we got to be an advocate for our own health. Right. But it's like I think sometimes we could do those little things that helps people feel like they're cared for, they're not invisible. Right. If you miss a day of work, that someone's like, Dad, what happened to you yesterday? We really missed you.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that goes a long way. So hello, we have a couple of people that just joined us. We're talking about World Bipolar Bipolar Disorder Awareness Day. So we were just talking about symptoms. We're asking people if you have any questions. And I think one good question at this midpoint, from what you've heard Dr. Bandelli and I talk about today, would you go, if you were thinking about going to get a therapist, going to seek out help, would this have pushed you to go seek help, or are you still like, nah, I'm still okay? So if you could drop that in the chat, that would be great. Because that will help us have feedback. Should we keep doing these Instagram lives if no one's deciding to go and get help? We want whoever is supposed to go and get help, if you know someone to go get help, that you're able to support them. So that would be great feedback for us. Are these talks helping you to decide?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Dr. Bandelli, can you share your email? Because I know you have a lot of free
resources.
That you have listed on there about relationships, about we had talked about a couple of things, and I know you posted that. So can you tell people your website, and if you want to connect with him, he is on Instagram. Follow his Instagram now. And then we'll go to, you go ahead and say your website, and I'm going to tell you the next piece that I wanted us to talk about real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to bandeliandassociates.com. That's Bandelli, AND Associates.com. We have resources, free resources up there around mental health and how to help support people who have mental health disorders. We have resources on how to build or restore relationships. We're actually writing an article this week on building and restoring family relationships in preparation for the training we're going to be doing with the Black Mental Health Alliance in 3 weeks on April 19th. And so, you know, a lot of the work that we do and the resources that we have are to help you build relationships, help you restore relationships. We had an article come out 2 months ago focusing on how to build trust once it's been damaged or destroyed. And go back and take the steps to kind of rebuild it. So a lot of the resources there, bandeliassociates.com, you can find those. And then also just follow me on Instagram at Adam Bandelli. We try to put out a motivational piece every day just to give folks perspective, get you to pause and reflect on where you are in your journey.
Yes. So I was doing a little research on Instagram, and you had the best post the other day. Do you even know what it is?
I don't know. I don't know. We haven't. I mean,
It's 2 days ago. You
yeah.
said, and I'm doing this in my DJ Khaled energy. Some people may not like you. They
Yeah.
they may be jealous of the opportunities you've been given. They may be envious of what you have accomplished in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
They may not like your charisma and charm. They may not want to be in the position that you're in right now. They may wish they had the relationships you have with the key stakeholders in your organization. Everyone is not going to understand you. They aren't going to understand your purpose and what you're trying to accomplish. It just inspired me. So, I got to read it.
Yeah.
What you think of yourself is what matters most at the end of the day. What you believe at your core should stand the test of time. Don't try to people please all those around you. You'll end up frustrated and overwhelmed, worrying about what other people think. It's okay to be misunderstood. And I had to take a break. I was like, oh my God, because sometimes I get so caught up in that.
Yeah.
It's okay to be misunderstood. It's okay to set your own path and pursue it with everything you've got, because people will discourage you, everyone. You'll find more meaning and fulfillment in doing what's important for you at the end of the day. Not what you think others want. Be true to yourself. Be authentic when interacting with others. Be courageous in standing up for what you believe is right. What matters is how you treat other people. What matters is the character and integrity that you have. What matters is your own commitment to your work. What matters is how you invest in developing your people. What matters are the positive behaviors you model for others. What others think never matters in the long run. Stay committed to what you believe is right in your heart.
That's poetry. I don't know who wrote
Oh
that.
my God, it's amazing. I had to share that because these are reasons why we need to stay connected to positive and uplifting people. Y'all, this was free on Instagram. So when we're scrolling, we need to, scroll and like and read positive things and not just, whatever stuff is coming up on our feed. Just purpose that the people you follow are people who are encouraging you. Because I just thought about sometimes, like, we're so passionate about building a business or building a whatever it is, a relationship, and it's like people will be like, well, why are you doing that? Like, what, why do you care so much about that? So it's like, no, you just got to do the things you're passionate about, and everything else will align. So Quincy Poet says, I'm a 30-year-old Black male seeing a therapist, and it does help talking to someone. So thank you for sharing that. Mental Health Emergency Fund. We have a therapist directory of Black and Brown therapists in Baltimore. Follow our page. Okay, thank you. We also have one at Black Mental Health Alliance, and I will share that. Oh, 3 snaps. Andrea said 3 snaps. Yeah, so thank you guys for joining us. And I'm surprised no one has any questions. No one has questions about bipolar disorder. That's very interesting. So I'm trying to see, how do we take the negative connotation from the term bipolar and make bipolar Andrea, I can't see the rest of your thing. It just dropped off. Well, I guess we can answer the half. How do we make it not a stigma?
Yeah, I mean, I think educating people about it. We try to do that at our firm, Bandelli and Associates, is just let people know that, mental health is part of everyday life. It's just not for people who have the disorder or who suffer from depression. I think the other big piece besides awareness is for folks who do have mental health disorders, like taking responsibility for going to a therapist or going to a psychiatrist or getting a support system that you have in place. Family members are a big key, spouse or significant others are a big key as well. That's be the second important thing, awareness, and then the responsibility that comes with it.
Yep. And so I'm going to put in the comment section if you want to email or call Cheryl Maxwell for the connect to resources around getting a therapist or a psychiatrist, because like Dr. Vandelli said, you have to go through a process before you get medication or even some programs. They just, that's the first step. So
Right.
I am going to put our info at Black Mental Health in the chat. So that way, if you don't feel comfortable, I know a lot of people have to call during the workday. So here is the email. And we also have, if you go to blackmentalhealth.com, we have a form that you can fill out to connect to a therapist. And also our database is not only Baltimore, it's nationwide. And one of the things that we've seen with people getting help is not just, I'm going to put Cheryl's thing here. I can't multitask. I'm gonna put Cheryl's phone number, and this one is a work phone. So if you would like to call or text, and it's after hours, she is a therapist. Now she can't diagnose. She's not there to do therapy, but she's able to help you with that whole culturally affirming information. And she's very resourceful. So even if you weren't ready to see a therapist or psychiatrist, she has different community programs that she can connect you to. Wow, thank you guys for joining us today. We have a lot of people that have joined us. Hello, everyone. So we're taking any questions that you may have around bipolar disorder. I really can't believe there's no questions. I guess everyone is getting all the knowledge out there. I don't know if it's good knowledge. And so also we were asking, did this talk help you to decide to connect to resources?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. My daughter said she saw one that I didn't see. How do you deal with bipolar disorder in a relationship?
That's a great question. I think, honesty is a piece. If you have bipolar disorder, once you know you're looking to move into a committed relationship with someone, talking about it, letting them know what it is, dispelling and answering any questions they might have, because the stigmas are out there and people may not know. I had to educate a lot of my family members and my partner around just what it is and how the ups and downs can impact you. What are the signs that you might be moving into a manic state or depressive state? So I think honesty and transparency are really important. And the loved ones supporting the person in the relationship. It's really about creating space for them to have their alone time when they need it. Just like in any relationship, it's having good boundaries in terms of what you can ask or ask for support when being too pesky or annoying or asking too many questions is not appropriate. And so having a balance between being supportive, but also giving the person their freedom when they need it.
And you can't manage it.
That's right.
For them. Like they have to decide to manage it. And I think if, like you were saying, if the boundary is, I'm not prepared to deal with that right now, then you have to love yourself enough to know that you can't deal with it. And it's time for a break. And it doesn't mean that it'll never work out, but just not for right now.
That's right. That's right.
And so, you know what? I apologize. There are questions in the chat. I don't know how I missed this. Trey asked, how is bipolar disorder diagnosed?
Usually it's diagnosed after, either there's a series of behaviors that are either manic or depressive. Usually the diagnosis will come from a psychiatrist. So a lot of times there is an incident of either someone being severely depressed, suicidal thoughts on the depression side. On the manic side, there could be erratic behaviors. You talked about earlier, Roxana, the MMA fighting overnight. Some other people could go out and buy a car when they didn't have any money to buy a car overnight, like a Mercedes or something crazy. Other times people are drinking too much or abusing drugs. So there's a lot of different factors, but usually there'll be some abnormal behavior, again, too high or too low, that usually will get diagnosed by a psychiatrist as such.
And I guess that you're most likely you're in a crisis state that gets you to a point where you have no choice but to deal with it. And so hopefully us talking about this now, you don't have to get into a crisis state if you think, and just because you have those symptoms does not mean you have bipolar disorder. That's why it's important to go and get checked out. It could be something else going on. It could be hormonal. It could be anything. So just make sure that you get the proper diagnosis.
Absolutely.
And so, all right, ABG, tell me if there's more questions in the chat, because usually I'm the one who can see the questions. Bombarlou asks, how do we support family members? So I know the other one was if you're in a relationship, so how do you support family members?
Yeah, very much the same thing. I think honesty, transparency are really important. I think reaching out intentionally, periodically to check in on them is really important. Those would be the big things, definitely honesty, transparency, and checking in.
And I think one thing that we didn't say yet, no, you cannot manage it for them, but also making sure that when we're talking to people about what we're seeing, like how we're presenting it to them. I think I had talked, we had a BMHA, like, I guess lunch. It wasn't really a lunch. We were just eating after an event. So it was lunch, but it wasn't lunch. And we had talked about like a couple of shows that really make us think about mental health topics without saying, hey, we should talk about this mental health topic. So I think doing that is a great way. Doing things like now, like just listening to different information, and then that person may on their own be like, wow, that story sounds a lot like what I've gone through. So I think just be creative about how we're presenting information to our family members as well. And it was funny because the show that I was talking about, my mother-in-law or my mom had suggested it, and we were all like watching it, and I was like, wow, they have a lot of mental health topics in here and they're addressing it, but they're not saying that, oh, it's this or oh, it's that. So I thought that was really great. All right, well, if we don't have any other questions, I think now is a good point for us to wrap up. Do you have any takeaways that you want to make sure that everyone just keeps in their mind for the rest of the time of not only the rest of the time of mental health, of bipolar disorder awareness day, but just in general about mental health?
I think three things. I think one, people say this all the time, but it's okay to not be okay. And you can go get help, and it's not a sign of weakness or it's not being too vulnerable. There are points in everyone's life, mental health or not, where you do need support from others. So don't be prideful or arrogant or think that you don't need to do that. I think two, when you do get a diagnosis of mental health, whatever that might be, anxiety, bipolar, it's not the end of the world. There are tools and resources. We mentioned some on the IG today, that going to our website or going to Black Mental Health's website, there are a lot of resources you can get that are free for you. And then I think three, the piece that I speak to a lot when we meet with our clients is there is, you have a support system that you should create with your family and friends and loved ones. And then there's a responsibility for you to take care of your health. No one knows you better than yourself. And so when your moods are off, when you're feeling down or when you're feeling up. And so I think really making sure that you prioritize your health is critical as well.
Awesome. Those were all very good. Very good takeaways. I think for Black Mental Health Alliance, we just want to make sure that people know that we are a organization that connects you to resources. We want to be there as a support. If you have an event that you would like to have training, or and when I say training, it's making sure that people know about the free resources out there, that they know how to deal with a family member that is having a crisis. And most of that is taking care of yourself first. So really making sure that self-care is there. And also training for organizations. So even as an organization, Dr. Bendelli, one of his core principles is all around making sure that you're not only thinking about the bottom line for your staff, but making sure they're okay. So please reach out to him to get support for your organization. Reach out to us if you have a family member that could use Black Mental Health Alliance as a resource, right?
Yeah.
So now with 15 minutes, we get to talk about your upcoming training. Like, you put so much into this training. You adapted your corporate work for family relationships. Do you want to this training is in April. It's on a Wednesday. It's a 3-hour training. I believe there's 3 CEUs.
Yep.
And it's kind of a big deal because, like Dr. Vendelli said, we always, when a person is in crisis, we think about, oh, it's just a person. But this training is really thinking about the family as a whole and how that can really help somebody change the trajectory of their healing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about the work you've done with that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put some information. I'm going to read some information when you're done.
Yeah, yeah. So I think the training is really going to be an empowering training to Black and brown folks who are looking to get a deeper understanding on how to build or restore relationships in their lives with their loved ones. We're going to take you through our relational intelligence framework of the 5 essential skills that really can build strong relationships in your family. So things like developing and building rapport, taking time to be intentional and understanding the people in your family, how you can be curious, how you can be inquisitive, how you can be a good active listener, show empathy and compassion. We're going to teach you how to be authentic and what it means to be a parent is modeling authenticity for their children. We're going to talk about how to develop trust and what that looks like, and how to restore and repair trust when it's been damaged. We're going to talk about the influence that you have on your family members. You know, many times children will learn more from what we do, not what we say. And so, you know, beyond talking about just the family unit, it's going to be, how do you apply these skills? If you come to our training in a couple of weeks on April 19th, you're going to walk away with some practical, pragmatic tools that you can take back right away to your family. If you're a mental health practitioner, you'll be able to take it back to your practice and use with your own clients. And so this training will really be a dynamic and interactive way. All of the trainings that we do are focused on getting our participants to be involved. There'll be discussions. We're going to be talking about things from code switching to microaggressions to just some of the things we learned through observation growing up that a lot of times we don't think about. But if you're raising children and you're intentional and authentic in how you do it, you can really build a next generation of people who are going to be able to embrace diversity, embrace inclusion, embrace belonging. A lot of the things you'll see in your business life or business world, business career, start in the home. The foundations are in the home. But we want to give everyone a playbook and a set of tools that they can start to take home, teach their children, work with their siblings, work with their parents, and those type of relationships.
Yes. So for our workshop, so you actually, you did better than what I was going to read for our description. So for the workshop, the early, what do you call it? Early registration ends 4/15. So you want to make sure you get it. It's $50 registration. You get 3 CEUs. And I mean, you really get so much for that. I mean, and you get a whole workbook. And I think sometimes we forget, like, what someone has talked about during a training. Like, you get a takeaway to help you even work through more afterwards. So I think if you're really committed to that healing process, this is a training you don't want to miss. And I'm going to put the link so that you can register. You guys can, or actually it's in our bio. So all you have to do is go to our bio and hit BMHA events, and that link is on there. And I think one of the things we always forget about is the connections that we make with the instructor and the other people that are in the training with us, because we're learning from each other as well.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big part of what we do in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so it's Wednesday. I mean, you do have to plan for it. It's enough time now, guys, that you can get in on this training and guess what? You could still, if you have any questions, you can email myself or Cheryl Maxwell at info@blackmentalhealth.com. She could go over the CEU portion. And if you're interested in, Dr. Vendelli had talked about, what was one thing that you said? Oh, the nonverbal things that kids learn from us. When was the talk that you had with Richard? It was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's on our Facebook and YouTube page. You could go through and see that replay. It's a powerful, I mean, it was only an hour, but it's like
Yeah,
my girls were listening to it and they were like, who is talking about? Like, it's just sometimes we need that light shown on us so that we can learn and build. Because when our young people are watching these kinds of trainings, they're learning that and they're keeping that in them
that's right.
for when they have to do it, you know?
Yep.
So that's the great thing about when we're learning as clinicians, as regular layperson. I don't have a mental, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but still just learning those things helps me when I'm responding to different situations as well.
Sure.
All right. Well, since everyone is pretty much, did you see any questions in the chat?
No, I didn't see anything else. No, this has been great. Really enjoyed
That
it.
means we did a good job. High five.
That's right. That's right. No, but we're really, in a couple weeks. We're going to be sharing this with our network as well. I think, again, the big thing that I think to take home, if you're going to be joining us for the training, is it's highly interactive. And so you're not going to be hearing from me and my colleagues. You're going to get to hear from each other and the stories that went on in your family and the places where you've learned and where you've grown. And that's what's really powerful about all the work we do around training, for whether it's personal, family, work, is the chance for each other as well. So we're excited to share what we know, but learn from what you know as well.
Yes, definitely. So Black Mental Health Alliance, I know I told you about this, Dr. Vendelli. We'll be updating our site with resources. One of the resources that is very powerful is Dr. Vendelli's site. Because he has the blog, he's also created a paper, I think in December, right, or November, that will be posted there as well to review. So we're really excited about our partnership, and we hope that, you know, people will support this training, so there'll be more trainings like that.
That's right.
$50 for 3 CEUs. You can't beat that anywhere. So really, guys, make sure that you're taking advantage of that. The link in the bio, BMHA events, click the link and register.
Awesome.
All right. Well, have an awesome rest of your
You
day.
too, Roxana. Thank you
All
so
right.
much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.